Let's play a word association game. I'll say former special counsel Jack Smith, and you'll think of exactly. Jack Smith's back. Now, is he back because Donald Trump's threatening to prosecute him again? You know, he got a whole gaggle of his meat puppets together, Todd Blanche and Pam Bondi and Kash Patel, all blinking. I thought I was watching South Park. I thought this was Kenny in South Park for a minute. Blinking, 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 but they weren't wearing parkas. As he talked about, we got to get Jack Smith, and who was his puppet? Who was his puppet master? What was her name? Lisa something, the woman, the Lisa Monaco, the number 2 to Merrick Garland, you mean? Yeah, we just watched that S show go down in the White House. And then all of a sudden, Jack Smith's almost like, you want me? You talking to me? So I thought I was watching Taxi for a minute, like De Niro. You talking to me? Comes back with a major interview. And the timing is exquisite. We talk about it on the Legal AF podcast, and here's a clip. Why don't you take the prosecutor lead and talk about what just happened, what just went down, and what Jack Smith said. We got some clips, too, that we can play for our audience. Okay.
Yeah, so look, Jack Smith, the special prosecutor, has been silent. He was essentially silent throughout the entire prosecutions of Donald Trump, right? He did exactly what you're supposed to do as a prosecutor, is not make public comments or statements, not try to influence the case. And he did that because that's how he was trained and that's how he is. But he's been noticeably absent from the public discourse in the since he, I guess it's been 10 months now since the cases have been dismissed. But he came out and he was in London. He was interviewed by former prosecutor Andrew Weissman. And it was a long interview. It was a long, substantive interview. It was, I think, more than almost 2 hours. And there was a lot of questions that were asked. And Jack was exactly who I know Jack Smith to be. I worked with Jack Smith in his early days at the Manhattan DA's office, which he talked about during his interview, which I loved, about how he and I started around the same time, a couple of years apart. We were in the same small group, small unit. We were trained by the same supervisor, and we learned how to be prosecutors the same way. And he said that was the foundation of his prosecutorial experience. And he went on to be a very highly respected federal prosecutor. He also worked at Main Justice. He also became an international prosecutor. So he has experience that runs the gamut. He's done public corruption cases, violent crime cases. I mean, you name it. He has all of the experience and all of the incredible judgment. And I think it's worth watching. It was really interesting what his perspective is and what he said about prosecution. I think we're going to play a clip here that I think he'll say it better than I could. Salty, do you want to play the clip of Jack Smith that we have?
The idea that politics would play a role in big cases like this, it's absolutely ludicrous, and it's totally contrary to my experience as a prosecutor. If there's rules in the department about how to bring a case, follow those rules. You can't say, I want this outcome, let me throw the rules out. That's why, frankly, you see all of these conflicts between the career apolitical prosecutors I worked with, because they're being asked to do things that they think are wrong, and because they're not political people, they're not going to do them. And I think that explains why you've seen the resignations, you've seen people leave the department. It's not because they're enemies of one administration or the next. They've worked through decades for different administrations. It's just they've been doing things apolitically forever. And when they're told, no, you got to get this outcome no matter what, that is so contrary to how we were all raised as prosecutors.
Yeah, so it's so true. And I think back to my years as a prosecutor, I had no idea what political party anyone I worked with was part of. It never factored into any decision you make as a prosecutor. You follow the facts wherever they lead without fear or favor. It doesn't matter whether the person is friends with the DA or donated to his campaign. You know, those lines are kept separately. We never knew if somebody donated money to a particular person or not. I mean, those things were so kept separate from line prosecutors, and that's who Jack Smith is. And I thought it was interesting, the timing of this coming out, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Why is he coming out now? Why is he speaking now? And because he's also not someone, Jack Smith is not someone who's ever coveted the spotlight, never seen him to be that way. He's a very humble guy, and he's not someone who I think goes out and promotes himself in any way. And so for him to come out and speak, and to speak the way about what he talked about the rule of law, about the importance of it, about justice being blind, about justice being about process being important, and as opposed to outcome, and that this administration seems to care more about outcome than they do about the process. And the process, and it should apply to no matter who you are, if you are being looked at it with the full force and might of the Department of Justice. And, I'd love to hear your thoughts on why you think he's speaking out now. I wondered, I have no idea, and I'd be totally guessing as to why. But I will say that while I was watching it, what I was thinking to myself and what I was wondering was, does he think he's going to be targeted next? Does he think he is, or does he know? Has he been issued a subpoena, or has he been? I know that they want him to come speak to Congress behind closed doors. But does he think he's going? Is this an indication to him that he's getting ready, that he is going to be targeted next? And so he's speaking out in his voice now, because otherwise there are rules about trying to influence a criminal case, and speaking publicly during a criminal case, and you could have gag orders, et cetera, if he talks too much. So I wonder if he's speaking now, as sort of a get his story out now. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I think that's an interesting observation. I think there's a couple of things. First, let's just say something out loud. That's the first time I've ever heard Jack Smith speak in like 2.5 years. He took to the podium like twice about his cases, right? When he issued his reports. And the fact that I even can hear Jack Smith again is comforting. I think the timing of it is interesting. I think, one, he understands that we're at a pivotal moment, sort of a hinge moment in our American experiment. It's gotten more critical for opponents of this administration, especially ones that were high up in the Department of Justice, to speak out. Many of them are unwilling to do it. There is an organization of former Department of Justice alum that have come out swinging and issued, like 3 letters already. But, you don't see them on mainstream media talking a lot. You don't see them even here on Legal AF, although I've invited them. They're a cautious bunch, as most prosecutors are. They're an apolitical bunch, as Jack Smith just laid out. So I think he sees there's a vacuum, there's a void that needs to be filled, and his voice joining in the chorus along with people like Barack Obama and elected official governors and state attorneys general. I mean, he has a unique vantage point, having been the prosecutor and investigator for Donald Trump and helping to shape the narrative in his own voice. That's one. Two, I mean, they've threatened him with the Hatch Act violation. I haven't seen reporting, nor has it leaked out, that he's being seriously considered as a target as a prosecutor. I think that would be almost a dead on arrival indictment, if they could even obtain that kind of indictment. Certainly no career prosecutor would ever violate the Department of Justice manual or the principles of federal prosecution to prosecute Jack Smith and violate all of their ethical obligations to do that. But we've seen Donald Trump. He'll find somebody, a first-year lawyer, an eighth-year lawyer, a lawyer with no scruples. He'll find a lawyer.
An insurance lawyer.
Insurance lawyer, who's doing fender bender before this. And could he be speaking out because there's a fear? Yeah, and the problem that you noted is he'll abide by the law and the rules, and he'll be silent while the White House pummels him. Dirty cop, dirty prosecutor, wife was a this supporter, all the things to tear him from limb to limb, although they did all of that already during the criminal prosecution. Something stops, I don't know what it is, something stops Donald Trump from even going after Jack Smith and martyring him. Something stops Donald Trump at the present moment from going after Alvin Bragg.
Yeah, interesting.
I don't know what it is, but there's some force field that's apparently still in place. Has he been tipped off and he wanted to get his word out first? Maybe. I just think it's a timing issue. I think he is stepping forward when others are stepping back, and we need him to speak. Because
I wonder if it's just because Congress, he knows he's going to be subpoenaed to go before Congress, and they're going to do it closed doors. And so he's trying to get his voice out publicly just so that people can hear what he has to say. So
I think it's all going into it. I mean, it's odd, but you're right to point out that there was a decision that's been made. Something, he didn't just, he said, now is the time. And somebody asked him to speak, or he got placed on that podcast, or CNN interview, whatever it is. But he decided with his kitchen cabinet of advisors and family, I'm going to speak against, and it's a politically and personally courageous thing to do in this time, don't you think?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
What I loved about it too, though, is he didn't go after anybody in this dramatic, corrupt, he wasn't like calling names and using big adjectives. He was just really methodically explaining exactly what it's supposed to be and why. And I think, he's exactly who you want to be a prosecutor and a public servant.
I mean, I think you can contrast. I mean, we used to see Fani Willis and even Letitia James when they speak. I mean, they're pretty direct about the attacks on them and who they blame. And Fani did it, from church and a pulpit, and then we see a lot of videos with Letitia James, who of course we support. But that's not Jack Smith, and right, the person that we knew, that you worked with. For those that are kind of joining late into the Legal AF game, you work with him as a young prosecutor, and who you see now in his 50s, no different than what you saw in his 20s, right?
Yeah, he's exactly the same. He's just a good guy.
About us, right?
Yeah, he's a really good guy, and he's just doesn't get better than Jack Smith. I'm
sure people say that about you, and about me. Like if people say, like if they knew you when you were fresh new into the prosecutor's office, and they know you now. It's the same. It's the same person, same values, right? Same, and me too.
Hopefully, I learned a few skills, and I'm a little bit better than I was when I first started.
Well, no, skill-wise, you're better.
I'm kidding.
Who you are as a person, right?
Oh, totally. Yeah, exactly.
Same. Welcome back. We sit at the intersection of law and politics just for events just like that. Wednesdays and Saturdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. You like that clip? Wait till you see the full-length 1-hour podcast. You can get it there, audio on Spotify and Apple. You can get it over on YouTube, of course, commercial-free versions on Legal AF Substack. We need help. We're 5 years in. We're kind of bouncing around the top 50 to 100 in rankings and ratings. We could use the help to kind of move it up a little further. I was hoping by now we'd be in the top 25, a little closer to the brothers at number 2 or number 3. Let's get there. The hummingbird effect, folks. And we're doing great on the YouTube version. There we're top 20 or so. And the bigger we are, the more your voice is heard, the more credibility we have as a podcast, the more guests we can get, the more information we can provide you, the more independent commentary. Now's the time to rally around the things that you enjoy. Make sure they stay on the air. So until my next report, I'm Michael Popok. Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.